What's up, guys? Ben here, bringing you another video today. It's Monday morning. Week 2 of the Major 5 qualifiers has completed. It was a pretty fun week. Saturday was a little bit of a snooze. We had one big upset on Saturday, but Sunday delivered in a big way, and I think there's some fun things to talk about. As always on Mondays, we do our tier list. Let's see where things stand going into Major 5 Week 3 qualifiers starting on Friday. All right, so if you're new here, as always, let me explain how this works. We don't do the letter tiers. I think that's whack. We do it this way. Sunday regulars are your top 3 teams. It sort of depends on the point of the year when we've done this, but to the name, like the teams that I expect always make it to Sunday at an event. Potential contenders is going to be top 6, top 7, sometimes top 8. Really, the rest of the teams that I think have a legitimate chance to win the event. That being said, there's always teams that have a chance to get like top 3, top 4. But I don't think they have like a high percentage chance to win. Work to do is like everybody on the bubble. Recently, this tier has become like all the teams. They're kind of on the edge of champs qualification, and then missing pieces as well at this point, the teams that have been eliminated from champs and will be going to Cancun at some point in a few weeks. All right, so let's start with the bottom. And unfortunately for London, I got to put them dead last. They had a square versus LAG this weekend, and it didn't go their way. They did win the S&D, but they lost 3 respawns in the series. And then they played FaZe, and although they did win sort of a mixy hotel control with a lot of defensive wins against FaZe, the other maps weren't amazingly close. I actually thought London didn't play too bad on this Scylla, but the hard points were, they were ugly. So yeah, this London team is shocked. They're dead last right now. At this point, they have 2 matches remaining against Mutineer and Thieves, and then what the event. So 3 games left for the squad, and I think it's time to part ways and try something else in the London camp next season. And then next up, we have LAG. Obviously, we talked about their victory versus London, but they got absolutely ran by New York and on Saturday. And again, this is another team just like London. That was a nice victory. But you know, they're 1-3 right now. I don't see them beating the remaining team they have, which is Toronto. So they're gonna start in losers, and then after that, I don't see them making a run. So probably 2 more matches left for the squad. And then a lot of big questions about what they're gonna do in the offseason, considering all of the stuff around LAG Oregon, all that stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna put them 11th in this spot. And then we have the Florida Mutineers. They got 3-0 stomped by Boston, like bad on Friday. I think first map was close, but after that, I think Boston started to really exert it. And then Florida blew like a 4-0 lead in the S&D. But then they actually had a really nice upset against LA Thieves. 1-2 hard points. Absolutely smoked Thieves on hotel control, Expo control. I don't think anyone saw that coming. S&D still kind of a problem with this team. It's just not really a strong suit for them, but that was a really good respawn showing in. For Florida, they're 2-1 going into this weekend, and maybe a surprise team that makes winners. Their remaining schedule is London and OPTIC, and I feel like the London match is really winnable. If they get 3, they may sneak into winners. I expect them to lose to OPTIC, so I would be on the lookout for this Florida team. I'm not going to move them up a tier just yet. I want to see what happens next weekend, but I wouldn't discount right now the fact that this Florida team might find a way to get top 6 or top 8 this last event. No, it's crazy. I know for some of y'all are going to be in the comments. You're going to be like, Ben, are you smoking the Papano? What are you talking about? I just think the way we've seen Florida play the last 2 weeks, there's a glimmer of hope that this team might make a real interesting run this tournament. I don't think they're going to win. I don't think their S&D is good enough, but I like this remaining schedule to get in winners, and then you never know from there. All right, so that's the bottom tier. I feel good about that. Let's move up. We have Vegas, Minnesota, and Seattle. I don't think I'm going to move any of these teams like up a tier. I think we're going to keep them as is. Just a question of the order at this point. I'm going to move Rocker to the bottom of this tier. They only had 1 match this weekend. It was against Vegas. It was an absolute grueling, probably one of the best matches, honestly, of the weekend. There was a lot coming into that match, and Rocker bottled it. I will be straight up, like, had an opportunity to close Vegas out on that embassy, and they did not. And then it went to a last map, and Vegas was just the better search team, and Rocker just looked scared. And like we've seen with Minnesota all season in S&D, they just don't have the balls to execute. I'm really worried about this Rocker team. If we look at sort of this run that they've had since the beginning of Major 4, yeah, they had a really nice reverse sweep against Seattle. I tipped them for that. But outside of that, when they went to LAN and beat London, okay, I mean, London's kind of a chalk team. You lost to Thieves. You lost to New York. In these qualifiers, they're 3 or 4 victors. They've been 3 or 4 at their home series, but they haven't won any of these matches online, and that's a problem for them because they're 2-1 right now. That loss, 1-2 right now, with loss to Boston at that event and to London now, or to Vegas rather, They have these in Toronto coming up, and I think there's a real chance this team goes 1-4 going into Toronto, and that's a huge problem for them. They're only 10 points now ahead of Vegas. Rocker in the 8th spot, Vegas in the 9th spot. And if Rocker basically go on a 3-game losing streak here, like they're going to open the door massively for Vegas to potentially get into champs by getting like top 6, maybe top 4 at this event. I think Rocker or the team that's on mega thin ice right now, if I had to pick one, I'm really worried about this team's ability to qualify for champs, and it would be an absolute disaster if in back-to-back years they don't make it. I think there would be massive overhaul in their camp for sure. Next up, we have the Seattle Surge, and a bit of an interesting weekend, and I'm not really sure what to think of this team. They played OPTIC and got ran like bad, and then they played Boston and they beat them. It was a pretty fun series. The Hydro, Seattle was kind of battling. Boston almost made a nice comeback. The CeeLo went to kind of a last round. Boston looked pretty good on the hotel control. Then we get to Fortress. It was another mixing map, but Seattle came out ahead in that one. Just with Seattle, I just feel really concerned about their S&D game against elite teams. I think the Boston victory is nice, but they're 1-2 right now. They got to play New York and Vegas, and there's another team I'm really worried about going 1-4. And look, I think this team's got to get like 10, maybe 20 more points to lock in their champ spot, but getting the 8 seed for Seattle to 7 seed is not going to set them up great for champs at the moment, because I'm really concerned about this team's kind of chemistry right now, their ability to execute. They are just like Rock or someone that I'm really looking forward to seeing really everybody in this work to do tier. They play the next week or so, because yeah, I mean, they're slipping right now and they haven't really had a performance to date as good as Major 1, and it would be about time for them to guide and get it going, because right now it just seems like this is kind of who the team is. They're not bad. Pred is pretty talented. Dante had a couple pop-off maps. Lamar was icing up yesterday, but against better teams, they crumble, and they crumble hard. All right, let's talk Vegas Legion. They went 1-1 this week, got slammed pretty bad by FaZe. This is a weird matchup for them. Can't match this team. They get absolutely ran every time they play them in S&D. They played them like 4 times this year, and none of the surges have been close. And the CDL control was kind of mixy, but FaZe kind of clutched up. And then I was a little worried for Vegas going to that Rocker match, but we saw something we haven't seen a lot from Vegas this year. They were down 2-1, and they won 2 straight maps to win that series. And it was a massive 10 points for them. They're only 10 away from Rocker, and if they can figure out how to win one of their remaining match against Seattle, Rocker kind of lose both, and then you're tied going into the final event of the regular season. I feel really good about Vegas's chances to qualify for champs. So yeah, for me, I like what I saw from Vegas this weekend, but they got to keep going. This team can be very day-to-day, and Seattle's not going to be an easy team for them to beat. 2 and 3 might get them into winners. It's going to get a little sketchy, and they're going to need some help. But they have played Seattle once this season. It was a mixer. It was online during the Major 2 qualifiers, and Vegas clutched up last map. And honestly, I could see that happening again. All right, so I'm going to do something kind of weird for this, because I really don't know who is like the fit 6 and 7 teams right now. We have this big grouping here, so I'm going to actually move Boston down to work to do. And New York's like the only team I'm putting that like in this potential contender spot. So let's talk Boston. Yes, I know they are 2-1 this stage. We talked about the Florida match already, but they had a stinker against Seattle. And I'm just worried that this Boston team is just kind of settled into this top 6, 7, 8 spot. And I just don't know if they're good enough to beat the best teams. I'm just really out on this personnel. I just feel like they don't have the edge. They don't have the efficiency of the top teams. They don't have the mindset of the top teams. I don't think they're bad. I don't think they're a bottom team in the league, but I also don't think that they're like an S tier team. So they're somewhere in the middle. I don't know what to think. They play FaZe in New York coming up. Those are 2 teams. I think they'd be able to beat New York. FaZe, I'm not so sure about, although they did beat them like the first match of the season and haven't played them since. So who knows? FaZe be finding a way to get 3-2 in every qualifier. So could be an upset. But for now, I'm moving Boston down. There's just a big group of teams, I think, on this kind of bubble spot for champs. Yes, I know Boston's probably going to make it, but I don't know what to think with the squad in their current form right now. They look iffy. They don't have a game mode that I feel like is a bread and butter for them. And in general, I just don't feel like they have that like killer instinct mindset that a lot of the top teams have. Next up, we have New York, all alone, the potential contenders tier. They only had 1 match this weekend. They slammed LAG. Really not much to say. LAG is kind of a chalk team. I will say for New York, 2-1 in this qualifier so far. They have Seattle and Boston coming up. And I can see New York going 4-1, and that would be very interesting for the bracket, very interesting for the seeding. New York's kind of stuck in this sort of mix in the middle of standings right now in terms of trying to get the best seed possible for champs. I don't think that I feel like they're going to slip below 5 in the standings. I think it's about then trying to pass Thieves up for that 4th spot if they can do it, and try and get the veto advantage going into that series. They're only 10 points behind Thieves, and I think Thieves is having a real rough split at the moment. So New York qualified for champs. They're set. They're going. We've talked about how day-to-day this New York team can be, but they're starting to show some signs of life this split, and it's making me feel a little bit optimistic for this team. I'm a little worried about the control so far. It hasn't been that great, but I will say the S&D has been really good. They're 4-1 this split in search. Keep your eye on that next weekend. If they keep the S&D form going for New York, this team is going to be very interesting in terms of potential dark horses for the event in Toronto. So we got to figure out how we're going to kind of shuffle this Sunday regulars tier. Thieves, I'm in a weird spot with Thieves right now. And I don't know what to do because they haven't played that good during the split. In fact, they played pretty poor. They're currently sitting at 0 for 3, and they're going to have to beat Rocker and London, who I think they can beat, to maybe have a chance to make winners. But they have really struggled online. The hard point hasn't been good, 2 and 4. The S&D hasn't been good, 1 and 3. And they haven't won a control across the board. This team is really struggling right now, so I want to see more from them. This is going to shock people, but I'm going to move them down to potential contenders for now. But after this weekend, they may go back up to Sunday regulars. I just think if they have to start in losers bracket, me banking them to just automatically get top 4 at the event is going to be really difficult, considering they would have to win, what, like 3 or 4 series to get there. It's going to be really tricky with their current form. I still think they're better than New York, but just based on current form and the fact that it's a good chance that Thieves start in losers, I'm going to slide them down a tier. All right, so now we get into the interesting portion of how we order these teams, and it's a little bit of like a kind of transitive property situation. I'm going to actually leave Toronto in 3rd for the sake of this video. Toronto only had 1 match this week, and it was against OPTIC. I think they battled well in that series. It was really close. But they came up short. I think OPTIC's like the clear number 1 team. We'll get to them in a second. But I think Toronto's looked a lot better this split. They have a couple matches coming up next week because they only played 1 this week. They have LAG and Rocker, and I expect them to win both. So they should be 4-1. They should get a top seed for this event. They're going to be at home. This Toronto team is starting to round into form. I'm still a little worried at times this team about 2 issues. We need to see the best version of Insight, and Hicks is going to have to step up when we get to land. Scrap's playing like an MVP player. And I saw a lot I like from Kleenex, but this team, I feel good about making it deep in the Major 5 tournament, especially at home. Are they going to be FaZe and OPTIC to get into grand finals? I guess that remains to be seen, even if Thieves get in the mix or New York. But I like where Toronto's at and feel good about them in the 3rd spot. And now we get to FaZe. They had 2 matches this weekend against a couple of teams that they should beat, and they did a pretty good job. 3-0 smoked Legion and a 3-1 against London. There's still a couple things for FaZe that they need to work on at the moment, but they've had a really good split in terms of hardpoint right now. 4-1 so far, 3-1 in search. Control's kind of the biggest issue for me right now watching them play those matches. I think they feel a little bit off in that game mode, and I actually am trying to think if they have 1-1 this split. They beat LAG on it, and they beat Legion, but they lost to London and OPTIC, so 2-2. There, but for me, I kind of like where FaZe is at. They have, I would say, an easy schedule for the split, so just keep that in mind when we discuss this. And they play Boston up next, which will be an interesting final match for them. They're locked in the winners, and with this team, it doesn't matter. 3-2, 4-1. I think it's good value that they're getting 3rd. At least it's just a question of, can this FaZe team make it to the grand final of this event? Can they get over the OPTIC issue they've had where they haven't been able to beat these guys at all this season? If they can figure that out, these guys are going to be the team you don't want to face at the end of this season. But we're setting up to a really nice situation with FaZe here in 2nd and potentially an OPTIC FaZe run back in the grand final of Major 5. And finally, let's talk OPTIC. I know people might be mad I waited to the end of the video, but you're number 1 and I went reverse order. So what do you want me to say? I had a great weekend of matches, beating Seattle, 3-0 Smoke Show, and then beating Toronto. They haven't lost an online match since like the end of March. So they've been an absolute cruise control. There's not like a lot, I think, to really say about this OPTIC team. They're just kind of firing on all cylinders. They're good at all game modes. They've started to play a lot more Embassy Search. That's kind of in the bag and gives them sort of a big advantage against a number of top teams. I think for OPTIC, it's just about getting it done on Sunday at this point. It's a similar thing to what we were saying about FaZe last year. Like, you have all the tools to do it. The only thing remaining is for you to go ahead and lift that trophy at the end. I think OPTIC is the bettor's favorite to win the event. Personally, the team I'm going to pick to guarantee to make grand finals at this point. They have one remaining match against Florida, and they should be able to get it done against them and go 5-0 and probably get the top seed. I think the question just is, are they going to do enough to make up the 15-point deficit between them and FaZe, the number 1 seed going into champs? I think they might be able to do it. If these teams score up at champs, then I think it would still be enough because FaZe would get 50, OPTIC would get 65, and they'd be tied. I think then we'll go to tiebreakers, and then OPTIC would have the head-to-head. But obviously that could depend if FaZe win their remaining match and OPTIC lose, and then they're 25 points ahead. At that point, if they go first, second, FaZe would get the first seed. But I feel good about OPTIC's chances to get the number 1 seed at champs right now. But they got to win one of these 2 remaining events, and they look good value on paper to do it. Just got to execute. So yeah, I think these are pretty interesting power rankings. I think there's a lot of movement in the middle here between the 5 teams in contenders and work to do. I don't really know kind of how this is all going to shake out with those teams at the end of next week, but we're probably going to be moving a couple of teams up and down, so looking forward to that. I think the top 3 is probably pretty set. OPTIC, FaZe, Toronto feels like a lock for 3 of the 4, barring anyone actually just playing horrible at the event. Just a question of who the 4th team is going to be at this point. All right, that's it for this video. I think upcoming this week, I'm trying to figure out content-wise what I want to do. I might get a head start on some of the off-season previews for teams like Florida, LAG, and London. I'm going to sit down today and kind of content schedule out and see what's the best way to do it. But we're going to start doing sort of chance preview videos, Major 5 preview videos, off-season preview videos. You're going to see a lot of that on the channel going forward. So let me know in the comments what you guys think of this video. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more. As always, guys, we'll see you on the next one.